What's growing on, gardeners? It's Thursday, May 30th, and the cucumber harvests are starting to roll in here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina. And on today's video, I'm going to show you all how to grow mountains of cucumbers. When you institute these simple tips, it will all become ridiculously easy to grow more cucumbers than you'll know what to do with.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Out of all of the different crops commonly grown in annual vegetable gardens, cucumbers may have the most amount of variability in success when it comes to the experience level of the gardener themselves. When you're inexperienced at growing cucumbers, entire plants may only give you 2 or 3 cucumbers, but if you really know what you're doing, you can get dozens and dozens of cucumbers off of a single plant. So there is a ton of play there. That is why I'm so excited to share these tips with you, because I used to be a gardener many years ago that only got half a dozen cucumbers off a plant. Now I get dozens. I could fill a bushel off of a single plant. Let me show you what I'm talking about. These cucumber plants that you see right here are literally babies. They have only been in these 20-gallon grow bags for a few weeks, and I've already harvested probably close to 2 dozen cucumbers off of them. When you know what you're doing, this is the level of insane production that you can get off of these brand new cucumber vines. I mean, just ridiculous levels of production. Look at that. What am I going to do with all of these cucumbers? Just incredible amounts. And those 2 plants are not flukes. They're all like that. These little tiny vines that are barely 2 feet tall are setting enormous quantities of cucumbers. And I can't wait to show you exactly how I accomplish this. Tip number 1 is the thing that brought my cucumber production to not just another level, but a whole different dimension. And that is to grow all Gynoecious Parthenocarpic varieties of cucumbers. Whoa, what does that mean? Cucumbers are part of the cucurbit family, and with most cucurbits, the male and female sex organs are located in different flowers. There are male flowers and female flowers, and with most varieties of cucurbits, you have to have pollen from the male flower transferred to the female flower. Most cucurbits have separate male and female flowers, and in order for a fruit to persist on the vine and ripen to maturity, you have to have cross-pollination between the male flower to the female flower. These varieties are called monoecious varieties. The overwhelming majority of cucumbers are going to be monoecious, and cross-pollination is required. The cucumber variety you see right here is Suyo Long. Suyo Long is monoecious. Here are male flowers on the Suyo Long. How do we know that they are male flowers? Because there is no baby fruit attached. They are standalone flowers. But behind, you can see up here, we have a baby cucumber. And on the tip of that baby cucumber, there's an old dried up flower. This is actually what a female flower is. All female flowers and cucurbits will have the baby fruit attached. So in order for this fruit to persist, pollen has to go from the male flower to the female flower, and here you can see it did, because the flower is starting to dry up, but the fruit itself is still green. If there were no cross-pollination that happened, this would turn orangish yellow and shrivel and fall off. It would abort. If you've ever seen your cucumbers or even your watermelons or zucchinis shriveling up when they're only an inch or 2 long and falling off, that's because of a lack of pollination. This cucumber variety is Early Prince, and these are great examples of what female flowers look like. Here is a female flower with a baby cucumber attached. There is another female flower that hasn't opened yet with a baby cucumber attached. All of them will have to be cross-pollinated with a male flower. And there's a male flower in the center of the plant right here. You know that's a male flower because it is a standalone flower. So if you wanted to hand-pollinate these flowers, you could take either a Q-tip or a blush brush or something, or the flower itself, and you can rub that pollen from the male flower into the female flowers, and that is what will allow fertilization, and then the fruits will grow and mature. So if you are growing typical monoecious varieties of cucumbers, in order to have good fruit set, you have to have cross-pollination of all of your flowers. Now typically that is done by bees and other pollinators, so if you don't have a healthy population of bees and pollinators in your area, you will not get good fruit set. Even bees and pollinators are not 100%. They're probably more like 50 to 70 75% productive if you're fortunate enough to have a hefty population. So the only way to have really truly great fruit set growing monoecious cucumbers outside of a beautiful, wonderful, robust population of pollinators would be to go outside every morning and evening with a blush brush or a Q-tip and manually transfer pollen from the male flowers to the female flowers. But if you don't have a robust population of pollinators and hand pollinating sounds like a lot of work, I have great news for you. There are parthenocarpic varieties of cucumbers where none of this is necessary. Parthenocarpic, or parthenogenesis, or parthenocarpy means that a fruit can persist without pollination. You do not have to fertilize the female flowers for them to hold, persist, and grow to maturity. And there have been so many developments in cucumbers that there are a ton of options to pick from where it is no longer necessary for cross-pollination to occur. And even more awesome, there have been developments in cucumbers where many varieties of cucumbers have been developed that have only or almost only all female flowers. So you can grow varieties of cucumbers out there that produce almost exclusively female flowers, and none of them require pollination from male flowers. So almost all of those fruits will hold without pollination, and you will have ridiculous harvests of cucumbers. I learned of this secret about 5 years ago when I started experimenting with a variety called Bait Alpha in my garden. It was a parthenocarpic variety, and I got more yields than I ever had before because all of the female fruits, for the most part, held in the absence of pollination. But Bait Alpha does have a problem. It does produce a lot more male flowers than female flowers. So because of that, the vines do spend a lot of energy on those male flowers. And I have found, believe it or not, even more superior varieties that have almost identical taste and flavor, but they only produce female flowers. Let me show you. This variety right here is a pickling variety called Diamant, and so far the yields on this is blowing my mind. Now, I'm sorry to say that the vine is not going to look ridiculous right now because I picked 3 or 4 off of this plant yesterday. You can't let a cucumber hold beyond maturity. I'll explain that later in the video. They had to come off and I just couldn't film this last night. But you will see that I have lots of pickles forming. Here's a couple here. There's several down here low on the bottom of the plant, and as you look up the vines, there are pickles at every single node, and pretty much all of these are going to hold because this variety does not require pollination. And what is really nice about this variety is how incredibly crisp it is. So far I have been really enjoying them. It has a really nice snap to it. Then right here is a mini cucumber variety called Party Time, and I discovered these last year and they absolutely blew me away. In fact, I made a video about them, and the video became so popular that Burpee's website, which is the only place I could find them here in the United States, went out of stock for the rest of the year, and I couldn't get any more seeds. I'm totally taking credit for that, but I reduced my own supply to 0, so I couldn't get more for myself. Well, this variety right here is incredible. This whole vine is what, less than 2 feet tall, and it's just overwhelmed with fruit. Now, these cucumber varieties only get to be about 3 to 4 inches long. You don't want to pick them when they're any bigger than this, or they will turn yellow and go to maturity and your plant will die. More on that later. But if you like a really mini English style cucumber that's great for pickling, this Party Time is awesome, and it is super productive. This variety right here is one that I'm trying this year for the first time ever, and it is absolutely blowing me away. It has so much production and it only produces female flowers. I've never seen a cucumber produce like this. This is like the Bait Alpha on steroids. This is called Merlin. Look at all of the fruits on this little tiny plant. There's another one in here, and there are fruits obviously all up the vine. All of these are going to set and hold. And look, another Merlin plant. Look at this thing. This is just absolute ludicrousness. Lunacy. I've never seen a vine produce like this. Now, this Merlin variety is gynoecious, so it only produces female flowers. So it's basically 100% productive. It doesn't waste any energy on male flowers. And that is why you are seeing absolutely insane amounts of fruit set. And as you work your way up the vine, you will see nothing but female flowers. Now look, nothing in nature is 100%, so it is possible that it could produce the odd male flower here and there, but it is just incredible how productive these little vines are. But what about the heirloom fans amongst us? If you want to grow an heirloom variety, this China jade is Parthenocarpic. I believe this variety dates back hundreds, if not thousands of years. It's believed to be an ancient variety, and it does naturally carry the gene for persistence. Now, I do believe that this variety does have both male and female flowers. Unfortunately, my original transplant was killed in a windstorm, so I direct seeded 3 seeds, and hey, all 3 of them came up. So if you're interested in growing heirloom Parthenocarpic varieties, China jade is an option. It is an Asian variety of cucumber, so it's going to make a cucumber that looks like this. This is the Suyo long variety, but the fruit is very similar. So now you know how to get your plants to set insane amounts of fruit. Now we have to get it to the point where we are the ones that actually get to harvest our fruit, not some other insect or mammal. And the best way to do that is tip number 2, grow your vines vertically. Keep them off the ground. Now, how you choose to grow them vertically is up to you. There are many different means and methods of trellises that you can build. In fact, I will link both above and down in the video description a playlist where I've built all of these different types of trellises over the years. But I have settled on the best way to do this, and that is to string trellis them up strings. And I will show you how I do that. And to do this, we are going to use 2 items. We are going to use double tomato hooks with twine, and we will use tomato clips. And to make things easy, I will link to all of these things down in the video description for your convenience. We are going to unroll the twine on this double tomato hook to a length that is suitable to reach the bottom of the plant, and then you are going to have to hook this up to some type of overhead cable or an overhead conduit. I like using aircraft cable. Again, I'll place a link to that down in the video description, but once you have yourself some type of overhead cable, all you have to do is just put the double tomato hook right on top of it like that. Make sure that it extends down low enough to reach the bottom of the plant. So now that we have the string in place, we are going to take our double tomato hook and we are going to clip the string, run it around the center of the hook, and then pinch it together so it grabs onto the string. And then we are going to pick up the vine and we are going to pick a convenient location to clip it onto. And this is my bait alpha vine. This is the variety that got it all started for me for growing Parthenocarpic cucumbers. So just to bring things in for a closer look, we are going to put a bend in this tomato clip. We are going to rest it so the twine itself is seated in the little gap. Half bend it, then we are going to pick up our vines and we are going to find a location around a node. So I was a little low on that. I'll have to bring it up a little bit. And then slide it up to grab on just underneath a node on the vine, and that will hold it in place like you see right there. Where the fruit load starts to get smaller, you can kind of twist it around the vine a little bit, but roughly every foot or so you're going to want to add another clip because the fruits can get kind of heavy. And now all of our vines are standing up straight and off the ground, so they are looking great. And by the way, don't worry if the vines that were sprawling along the ground look a little bit funny like this one was. Because this was kind of crawling along the grow bag, it bent itself in such a way to maximize its reach toward the sun. Now that I stood it back up, it's sort of contorted, but after about 2 or 3 days in the sun, it will straighten back out as it tries its best to reach back up towards the sun. So it will be self-correcting. Don't worry if your vines initially look a little bit kinked up. They'll work themselves out. Tip number 3 is the downfall of even the most experienced cucumber growers, and that is never, under any circumstances, can you let a single cucumber mature on the cucumber vine. Cucumbers have a massive downfall built into them. If they allow a single cucumber anywhere on the entire vine to turn yellow and ripen mature seed, the cucumber plant itself will think that it's successfully reproduced and it will begin to die back. Now this is a massive issue because cucumbers are a mess of vines and cucumbers love hiding in those vines. So no matter how good you are, it's only a matter of time until eventually we miss a cucumber and then something buried inside all of those leaves, turns yellow, and then the cucumber vines will fail and they will die back and go into decline permanently, and you will lose that plant. Now, there are two solutions to this problem. The first solution is to pick your cucumbers early and often, and I mean often. Come out every single day and pick your cucumbers, even if your cucumbers have not reached full maturity. That's no problem. They're better small anyway. So once you start getting cucumbers about this size, please pick them all off. I need to clean this plant off because just having cucumbers this big on this plant makes me a little bit nervous. Now, the other thing you need to do to have success is to succession plant your cucumbers. Cucurbits in general do not last an entire summer. It is pointless in almost all climates to try and keep a single cucumber vine alive all summer long. So every 6 to 8 weeks, you should be sowing fresh seed because you have to assume that the lifespan of a cucumber vine is only going to be somewhere between 60 and 90 days from transplant. And most of us have way longer growing seasons than that. I usually grow about 4 crops of cucumbers in my growing season, and I only have about a 240 to 250 day frost-free period. So I don't care where you live, if you're in the Northeast, the upper Midwest, if you're in the Pacific Northwest, you should be growing multiple crops of cucumbers. You should always have backup plants that are sitting somewhere ready to go, because it's only a matter of time until you miss a cucumber and the plant goes into decline and dies on you. So you want to have other vines that are planted somewhere else in your garden in succession planting that are beginning their harvest, because we just have to assume these plants are going to die in about a month or two. Tip number 4 is to fertilize your cucumber plants regularly and heavily. Now, as I previously mentioned, it is very important that we pick our cucumber plants early and often in order to prevent any of the cucumbers from reaching maturity and keep the vines alive and productive. But cucumbers also have a characteristic where the more you pick them, the more fruit they produce. Now, this is a natural biological reaction. Every plant in nature wants to reproduce. That is its function. So if the cucumber believes that it's having all of its fruit plucked off of it before any of the seeds can reach maturity, which is the purpose of the plant, they will react by freaking out and overproducing flowers and fruits to compensate for all the fruits that are being plucked off of it too early. Well, all of that doesn't come free. In order for the plants to produce that much energy, they need a lot of food. So if you keep picking your cucumbers early and often and you don't feed them enough to keep up all that production, they will start to get sick and go into decline. You have to give back what you are taking from the plant. Now, how often you fertilize your cucumbers depends on how you're growing them. I'm growing all of my cucumbers in 20-gallon grow bags, so they are limited to the amount of nutrients stored in that little grow bag. And we get a lot of heavy rain here in the summer, which washes out the nutrients in the grow bag. So for that reason, I have to fertilize them every 7 to 10 days. If you're growing your cucumbers in even smaller bags, like 10-gallon or 15-gallon, you may need to fertilize them even more often, every single week. If you're growing your cucumbers out in an earth garden, because the soil does not wash out as much in a garden, you may be able to stretch that fertilizing to 10 to 14 days. So ultimately, you are going to have to decide how frequently you are going to do it based on your unique growing conditions and how much it rains in your climate. More rain means you need to fertilize more often. But no matter what your frequency is, what I feed them is always the same. I give each of my plants a blend of an all-purpose organic granular fertilizer, something like this Job's Fruit and Nut, but anything around a 555 NPK will work just fine. And then I also give it bone meal. Bone meal is a source of organic phosphorus and calcium, so it is very important to have healthy, strong roots and lots of blooming. So generally, I do 2 parts of the organic fertilizer to 1 part of the bone meal. You can blend it together in a 2-to-1 ratio, and then each plant will get about 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of the combined mix. Then once I place the granular organic fertilizers, I like to take a watering can and mix it with Alaska Fish Fertilizer 511. I like to mix it at a rate of about 2 to 3 tablespoons per gallon. Then to that watering can that I just added the fish emulsion to, I like to add a 1 tablespoon per gallon concentration of Jack's 20-20-20, which is a water-soluble, not organic, synthesized fertilizer. Yes, this is J.R. Peters 20-20-20, but J.R. Peters owns Jack's. It's basically the same product. I think this is the highest quality water-soluble fertilizer out there. If you're interested in it, again, I'll place links down in the video description to all of these fertilizer items. If you don't want to go out and get the Jack's product and you just want to grab something off the big box store, something like Miracle Grow Tomato is very similar to this. This is a balanced 18-18-21, similar to a 20-20-20. But if you don't want to use a synthesized, not organic fertilizer, you can even go out and get something like an organic, water-soluble Miracle Grow, like this. What is this? This is a 9-4-12. That's probably not the one you want to use. You probably want to use the 888 Bloom Booster instead. That would probably work a little bit better, but again, I will add all of these things down in the video description. And the fifth and final tip to grow mountains of cucumbers is not going to apply to every single gardener, but it does apply to most of us, and that is to keep the plants cool and protected from the extreme UV that comes in the middle of the summer. Remember, these are vining plants. They are not pioneer species. They did not evolve and adapt to grow out in open fields underneath no tree protection. They are a tropical vine that was meant to meander throughout the forest and grow underneath shade canopies with mottled light, not grow in direct sun. The reason why we grow things like tomatoes and cucumbers out in direct sun is because where we live, we get frost and freeze. We have to jam all of that solar energy into a constricted time frame. They don't have years to grow like they do in their native habitat where frost and freeze does not happen. So because of that, we plant these plants out in full sun and they do absolutely fantastic in the spring, but then the UV index hits 9, 10, 11, extreme, and it cooks the plants, it beats them down, and then they start dropping their flowers, they start wilting, they get leaf curl, they get all types of blights and diseases. Because imagine what you would be like if you were stuck out naked in the desert in the middle of June. You'd be cooked alive. You'd literally need shade to protect you or you would actually die. Well, that happens to our plants too, and we often forget that because we don't think of things in that mindset. So now that it is the end of May, next weekend I will be erecting my shade cloth up above. That's why I have these hoops running overhead. I have been using shade cloth for a few summers now, and it has absolutely revolutionized the way that I garden. Keeping these plants underneath 40% shade cloth has made them live months longer, and I get production way longer. For the overwhelming majority of people out there, shade cloth will be of benefit. If you live in northern areas of New England or the Pacific Northwest or the upper Midwest where heat is not really an issue and the sun never gets all that intense, you may be able to get away with not having shade cloth. And if you have a very short growing season of 120 days or less, it may not matter for you. But even where I used to live in New Jersey, shade cloth would be highly beneficial come late June and July when the sun starts getting strong. Here in the southeast where I live, it is absolutely mandatory. It is absolutely mandatory for Texas, Florida, Southern California, any areas of the desert, and let's not forget places with high elevation because the air gets thin and the atmosphere doesn't shield from the UV as well. So even if you live at a high elevation that doesn't have a particularly long growing season, the UV does more damage there. So shade cloth provides tremendous benefit. I use 40% shade cloth. What I use I will link down in the video description. 40% is going to be appropriate for most growers, but if you live in South Florida, South Texas, maybe the desert like Phoenix or Vegas or at a high elevation, you may even want to mess around with 50 or 60% and see how you do. And if you're reluctant to spend money on shade cloth, let me try and change your mind. It is very, very inexpensive. It will last you a very long time if you care for it. Easily 10 years, and it will pay for itself in no time because you will have to water so much less. If you pay for water, the amount of savings on irrigation that you will have from using shade cloth will pay for that shade cloth in a season or two, maybe even sooner. So it's one of those things where for a very small upfront cost, you will get paid massive dividends both in time, irrigation costs, and since you'll get more food out of the deal, you'll have to spend less on groceries. And that right there are 5 tips to grow grow absolutely massive mountains of cucumbers. I have been doing this for years, and every year I get better and better at this and I learn more about it. And these 5 things have been absolutely critical for my harvest. 10 years ago, I wasn't the best cucumber grower, but now I grow so many that I don't know what to do with. And I know that if you follow these tips, you will see tremendous success as well. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring that notification bell so you're notified when I release more videos like these. Again, if you're curious about any of the products that I featured in this video or that I use in real life in my garden in general, I will place links to them all down in the video description in my Amazon store. So expand the video description, click on the Amazon link, you'll see everything I use in real life. And while you're down there, check out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support the channel. If you have any questions about any of the concepts in this video, ask them in the comments below. I will do my best to address them. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video.
Get him! Get him! Double team that Dale! 2 against 1, not fair! Oh, he's stronger than 2 Hooms!
Get it!
Double the Hooman, single
Double
the
the
Dale. Come on, look at this! Look at the way that look at the way the camera's extending his snoot. That snoot is too cute.
Oh, he's had enough.
Oh, he's had it.
He's had enough of our games.
All right, Dale, can you drop it?
Drop?
Drop.
Can you drop? You fun?
He's trying.
Drop.
Dale, drop it. Very good.
Boy!
All right, Mom.
boy.
Throw it to Dale.
Woo!
Well, that was a great throw. Sheesh.
Little high.
A little high. It wasn't even, may as well have been in the neighbor's yard. All right, Dale. Kill.